me, I can speak for all the coaches, the level of respect we have for you and what you've done for not only me, but for the other coaches. When you see a team in Arizona, a team in Carolinas, anywhere, any firecracker team across the country, when you see them, what type of pride does it give you knowing that they're wearing the same thing you're wearing, but they may or may not have met you, but they still carry those same values?
Gets me right here, Tyler. It's, whether they meet me or know me or ever care to, it's really not the point. For the longest time, because I'm a baseball background guy, so it was even the name Firecrackers. I didn't really talk about that. I'm a softball coach or whatever, but I started to realize it's the values and principles that we stand for. And so what makes me feel great is that, again, I'll go back to my upbringing, my parents, the way we were raised, and there was no instruction to go out and teach the world this or anything. But again, it's kind of like you feel like you were fortunate to have something and you want to pass it on to people. So the Firecrackers are a culture-based organization. The model for this wasn't about everyone being elite and having to have this elite performance standard. I feel like everybody, and there were, in my opinion, lots of people that could feel better about themselves and find more value in themselves. So when I see it and I see the pride, when my mom was alive, I would tell her, Mom, they're here because of what you taught us. Like, yes, softball is what brings us together, but Tyler, like you even know in our coaches meetings, it ends up having this feeling, and there's this certain it sounds corny, but it's love, and it's weird to think that you could create this kind of culture that has a love as a base component across the country with people that you'll never meet. But that's what I see, and it warms my heart to know that a simple-minded man and woman taught us values that now more than a couple people are kind of sharing as well too. That's the most rewarding part of it. It just makes you feel really good, and I can see my mom just kind of saying, "Hi, Tony," and I'd say, "Mom, you're kind of everyone's teacher," and she would just sit there and shake her head like she almost couldn't comprehend it because she didn't. There's no computer in my mom's house when she was alive. She doesn't understand kind of the reach of it. So I would just try to explain to her, almost like having a radio show that people listen to. So extremely rewarding. And man, I can't tell you that that's something that really feeds me as far as the responsibilities and the push to keep getting better for our families.
You mentioned the coaches meetings that we have, and each week we kind of come together, and of course you're leading that meeting, but oftentimes it's just you'll have a topic and then you turn it over to someone else because you want to lean on them and their experiences too. Talk about your support staff that you have in the organization and then the coaches that are around the country and what you've learned throughout the years from talking to different people with different backgrounds and different makeups and kind of where they're at now.
Oh gosh, thanks for bringing that up because I would not be sitting here without what you call support staff. The people that are the backbone and spinal cord of the Firecrackers are the ones that make all of this possible. I am just the crazy idea guy that, it's like we talk about using analogies. I'm the guy that plays guitar, but we've got people around me that put everything together and put the stage together and the marketing and everything else. So it starts with our administrator, Melinda Manahan, who I would say empathetically, or maybe she felt sorry for me 20 years ago, has just started putting some organization. And I think this is a story a lot of coaches relate to, right? You have some person that kind of sees the way you're doing things, and then they're like, whoa, you need some help. So they just start helping you out of the kindness of their heart. So she started with us and with me about 23 years ago. And we never could have dreamed that this would have materialized into what it was, because 23 years ago, I was a single parent giving lessons in my backyard with no, the expansion and the brand of the Firecrackers kind of all happened on its own. It was never a business plan. So Melinda is our administrator. She is like the gatekeeper. So when someone inquires about Firecrackers, she does her due diligence. She asks the questions. She lets you in the gate, and then she welcomes you into the house and wants to make you feel awesome coming in. Then we have to go to Robin Ferris, our national equipment coordinator, our apparel director, Reagan Shack, our graphic designer, Juliana Chittister, Sue Wester. And then you start going into even more of the staff. So Kenny McMeechan, one of our longtime coaches, kind of handles I'll call him our operational guy, but even though he's retired, but he's always hanging out in the facility and getting things done. our vice president, Sean Bashir. And then you have to go to all of our coaches that have been here 5+ years, 10+ years, believing in our message. The new coaches, I mean, there's no end to it. The firecrackers and the lifeblood are the people inside it, yourself, everybody. I'm just the tip of the pencil, that's all I am. But there's a lot of things behind it. So without them, we wouldn't be here. And I couldn't be more appreciative of the support staff that we have. They're amazing people.
You put a big emphasis on the recruiting element, the recruiting side to the game, because essentially these girls are playing and they keep playing at a high level. It's just natural that they want to continue playing, and it's never forced on them. It's never pushed. It's by their own direction. It's by their own push, their own drive, their own will to play at a higher level. You have a pretty good group that kind of leads the recruiting side to the organization. And they do a lot of work, constantly learning, so they can teach and they can mentor. Speak on the recruiting side and how important that is to you to help these ladies continue their education first, but also have a place to continue their athletic career.
Yeah, I think the combined experience and stories that we all have provide a unique kind of something unique to offer our coaches that are kind of new in the game. My personal experience is different than most, but I think the thing that I want to pass on to all of our coaches is that when you make something that people want to watch, they want to be around, and put your efforts into that actually works. So I'll mention to our coaches and players, a lot of college coaches don't necessarily or consciously look for behavior, but they notice it, and then they're intrigued by it, and then next thing you know, they say there's something about that kid that I just have to have. I mean, we've got a little Spitfire down there in the Gulf Coast, Ella Nelson, that she's probably lower 5 foot, whatever, and she plays like she's 9 feet tall. I usually delete videos that don't keep my interest after about 2 or 3 seconds, and I can watch Ella Nelson's videos probably 5 times over. And so that's what I try to give back, is play the game in a certain way, train your game in a certain way, so that even if they're not looking to be interested, they're interested once they see it. Now you add in Adam Glickman and Greg Metler and Ben McKinney, they're the core of our recruiting advisory board that we have on our meetings every weekend. And these guys bring in the brunt of the work that relates to most coaches, which is the type of path, the emailing, the communication, the building of the relationships, and then understanding the picture. Because without this guidance, without this help of the navigation, because recruiting is such a big stress point for families, and understandably so. So if you don't have anyone to reassure you because they've been there before, and you're going purely by emotion, that's the scariest thing for me. And there are a lot of families that do that. They want to give their daughters the same advantage as someone else. They don't want their daughter to be less than. So they're overextending themselves financially. They're overextending themselves going to every camp, or every time a coach says, hey, come to my camp. And they don't know how to differentiate the level of interest. So now you go back to guys like Adam and Greg, that most of our coaches don't even understand how successful these guys are. If you were able to know what they do for a living and how successful they are as business people and as fathers, and then realize that, man, they give their time to us every week and share this, when really they could have every excuse in the world to say, I'm busy, I'm on an international call, or I've done this, or I've got that. I mean, it's humbling to think that their level of business success, as a lot of people have, they're bringing it into our culture. So very, very appreciative of that. And then you go and just the experience of the coaches. Again, Sean Bashir, a lot of our coaches, they just have great stories to pass on. And okay, so go back even to the military, right? So someone that's been in 8 or 9 years, and then you've got the green bean that walks in. So they think they know, they're ready to go, they're all gung ho, and you're like, you don't know what's around the next corner. So let me show you how to keep your head attached, right? And my dad used to tell me stories about that in the war. And so put it all together, and it's a big melting pot of great people with great experiences, and then taking their success and experiences from their outside endeavors. Because when people look at softball coaches, well, eventually they're looking at you like you don't know how to call pitches, and you say, do you realize what this person does for a living? So, and they're coaching because they volunteered and they love it, but they were never professionally trained, as most travel coaches aren't. So you just got to keep perspective and go, whoa. A lot of times our players will go, whoa, I didn't know my coach did that. That's what I say, well, you don't ask.
Yeah.
I get it. So together, collectively, the recruiting aspect is one of the big deliveries of guidance and support that we need to provide for our families, because it's such a scary endeavor the first time you go through it.
Yeah. I think with me talking to Heath Miller, what is just an incredible guy, a very passionate guy. I talked to him quite a bit from being over here, and before my daughters joined the organization, and before I joined Coach Sean Kruger with the Firecrackers team out of Wilmington here, kind of on his staff. Before I even thought about it, it was just this level of brotherhood and sisterhood, this family atmosphere, to where it's never about me, it's about we. And I don't know how many times I heard Heath say the name Medina, Rico, Brashear, and just every time we'd come up with a conversation, Coach Rico said this the other day, and this is a month or so before I ever went to Firecracker Day out here, earlier this year. And just being able to hear the passion in the coaches' voices when they talk about other coaches within the organization, it leads me to believe that the core, the root of the organization comes from this sense of family, this sense of togetherness, of who we are. We're doing this whole thing together. We want all these teams to succeed. When you guys face each other in these big time tournaments, where it seems like everything is on the line, there is that level of competition, but you also want to see that other guy succeed as well. So as we get through with, say the summer season, and you look at everything that's kind of happened, and you look back at all these successes, and we're all kind of like cheering each other on, and you see the growth. What did you take away from this year's experience with the Alliance and that competition, facing some of the teams that are within the organization and some of the bigger organizations around the country as well?
The biggest difference for me, and why after 3 decades where most people retire from what they do, we put probably another 10-year project on our plate. It's the feeling of camaraderie and true caring off the field, especially with people that we've competed against. And I never would have imagined that I would have been working on a level with guys like Mike Stith and Marty Tyson, the way that we are right now. So what it adds, Tyler, is that it adds a foundation. The caring part and the relationships and the respect off the field adds the foundation. That is like the bottom layer, and that won't go away, because that's not changeable. Now add the competition on top of it, and that's the great thing, right? So there's still a place for, we say, for you to go out there and be the big dog, right? For you to show the alpha blood, whatever it is. But on the field, if you can keep it on the field and then compartmentalize and keep yourself dignified and respect your peers, because we're all in the same industry. So that was absolutely the best part, was going at it, watching, even like, I'll say partners in business eliminate each other from nationals. And the hardest challenge, I think, for all coaches is to not cross that line of taking it personally or saying something in a game, because people don't forget. I tell our coaches, they're going to remember you for the worst thing you say, or your worst action, or your worst behavior, no matter what the moment was or what injustice took place. That's what they're going to remember. If you disrespect your partner during competition, at that next board meeting, he's going to remember that. And so I'm working with people that are, I want to say, they're secure enough with themselves to keep those things in order. And I would say to any coaches that might be listening right now, is that's the message to our coach, because it's when you say it's family, the Medina, the Brashear success, that what Heath Miller is doing right now, it's culture.
Mm-hmm.
So culture is an environment, right? How do you want, and let's just say you wanted people over your house, right? So how would you want people to feel if they walked into your house? If you were throwing a party for them, are you throwing a party for your daughter because it's her birthday? And it's like, oh man, we got to invite so-and-so. Let's get the family and let's get them out of here by 5:30 and cut the cake and kick them out. Or is it, hey, people are coming to our house and we want them to feel a certain way and give them a certain experience. Next thing you know, it's 2 a.m. People don't even realize how late it is. And they're like, we got to go. We got to get some sleep. And then they come over the next morning to help clean up the party. So they make a party out of that. This is kind of how I grew up. This is what our family house was like. So the feeling of culture and respect is it doesn't even compare to winning. Now, easy to say, and because winning and being ambitious and championships and recruiting, all of that is part of what I call the hard goods of softball. Well,
Mhm.
that's good. We have to have something to compete for and strive for. But I believe that all coaches across the country in softball or anywhere can create cultures that people want to be part of. And for any coach that might be part of any organization or a startup, because I often think about the perception that people have of me, or kind of the monetization or the business aspect of softball, and not really caring, or they don't need to know really actually my story. But how many people would love to build their own brands and would love to work in softball full time? How many people would love to be able to create something that is unique and people want to be part of? And that's, I just have a story to pass on. I don't think I'm a businessman. I just have a story that something's worked, and I'd want to pass that on. So coaches, like, think about cultures, think about environments, and know it's not always instantly gratifying. It's not as sometimes as effective as the quick sell of what you can do, and you've got this to offer or that to offer for someone to play on your team. But I love it when I hear a story from a coach that there might be a player on another team that is maybe above their playing level, but their parents appreciate the way the coach conducted himself or herself, and they say, you know what, my daughter can play for anyone, but she wants to play for you because of the way you act.
Right.
And that's something that's attainable for every single coach. So I implore people to don't forget, if you come from a good place, share that with people, because that's what these girls really need too. They need solid foundations to grow on.
Yeah, and I agree. It brings me to my next point, and you hit it perfectly. A perfect segue. There's always turnover with whatever line of work, whatever business, whatever we're in. There's always some level of turnover, and with turnover breeds this new blood, this younger generation. And in this case, talking softball, we have this new generation who is huge into social media, getting our message out there. And that's one element to the younger generations. But the other side is these young bucks coming up through the ranks that are now coaches and performing really well. They are being influenced by some of the older coaches that have been around a little bit longer. Can you speak on some of the younger coaches, maybe not in age, but haven't been coaching as long, and some of the success that they've had, and also some of the stuff that they've talked to you about, and you're helping them learn along the way, as well as the other coaches?
Yeah, I think empathy applies. I think so. Understanding where people are coming from is really big. So it just seems like yesterday that I was one of the young bucks. I think I was 26 or 27, and you expect confidence. You expect, you know, uh, if somebody was or wants to be the guy or the girl on the field that kind of takes care of business. So you get a lot of that, right? So to go back to the military, you've got your combat soldier, you got the one that's ready to charge the hill and risk their life and fight for the flag of their buddy. You've got that, but then you've got the officers that have to think rationally, that have to plan and strategize. And so, what does it really take as far as officers go? Experience, wisdom. So, you put those two things together, and every generation is different. Our generation was told not to sit and watch the TV. But for some of us, it worked out pretty good. And these kids are being told to put their phone down, right? But their phone is like an appendage to them. It's something that's a part of what they do. It's part of who they are. So when you start to think of the social media and the things that this generation is participating in, I think there's I think you open up the door to being able to respect the different generations when you respect the other generation first. Our players teach our coaching staff. Our coaching staff, there's probably what, 5 or 6 of us, and we probably total about 900 years in age. So it's an older coaching staff, and so there's certain things that we provide. And I'm one of the youngest of the staff, but it's an older staff, and then the kids teach us, like, we always kind of have fun with some of the new political terms, and I won't get into them, but it's kind of fun to say, hey, Skylar, will you teach Coach Don what this term means that he heard today for the first time?
Yeah.
And so it just kind of opens up some interesting dialogue, but I think it's important to acknowledge kids for what they can teach you. And then I ask them that as they go on and build the future, to don't discount experience. So even though Uncle Ralph might be antiquated in his views or how he talks or the things that he says that are just absolutely unacceptable nowadays, right? We'd be canceling like our grandparents and some of our older uncles with some of the things they say. We just grew up in a different time, right? But I don't expect these kids
Right.
to not so much empathize with it, but to understand it. I said, don't discount them because they're experiencing what they went through and their life struggles. They were things that you didn't have to go, and without that, you wouldn't be here. And then I hope I live long enough to see where these players right now with their kids are going to kind of have a different opinion on with them. I tell them, if you think your kids are going to be all about what you guys think right now, there's going to be something in 30 years that your kids go, Mom, that whole like Twitter thing or TikTok, whatever that ancient thing that, so it's just kind of fun. But integrating all of that, Tyler, I think is important because together, you never stop learning. It's kind of a cliche, but you don't. And if you can bring that all together, then what you have is a respect, and respect helps create the experience. If you give respect, you're more likely to get it in return. So I think that's a big point to take away.
Yeah. And two, having these former players now that have played with Firecrackers and gone through the ranks and they've had their college careers. Some of them are playing professionally. And then when they get into the coaching and they kind of come back and you're able to talk to them and kind of mentor them on that side of the coaching, what's the feeling you get when they branch out once their playing days are done and they're starting to coach and knowing that you coached them from when they first started, or at least they were in the organization at some point and carried their careers all the way through. And now they're coming back and they're giving back to the same community that, started years ago.
I remember being in my coach's office when I was in college, and he read me a letter from a former player that was happy with his life and working in the professional world. And I probably heard 2 seconds of it because I was like, Coach, what time's practice? Like, what's a practice? and I didn't get it. And now I fully get it. I'm living that life. And when you see a former player living a life that she loves, whatever that is, right? We all have different purposes. And then kind of, you mentioned getting into coaching. It's interesting to see how many of them didn't major in coaching, didn't major in things that lead to a coaching lifestyle, but then they end up coming back to the game that they love. They go out there in the working world, they're providing for themselves, right? They've got a good job, but their passion, or maybe even possibly their purpose, I wouldn't say it's even so much softball, but it's inside softball. So it might be people or whatever.
Right.
So that's always rewarding to see them come back. And, but most of all, find something that they love to do. I would say this, I think applies to about maybe 85% of people. Find something that you love to do and find a way to get paid for it. I've never done anything for the dollar. You were mentioning earlier, you're just telling us stories with these podcasts. And I think one recipe for a certain level of, I won't call it financial success, but giving yourself a little breathing room is don't do it for the money.
Right.
Like figure out what it is that people want, what they need, or what you have to offer, or what people are attaching to, and let the value be from there, and then let it lead to whatever might something you can capitalize on. But don't do it for the wrong reasons, because it's like coaching to win, right? And then you're stressed out when you don't, and you're all over your players, and in the end, you've lost the culture, you've lost the foundation. So in the end, the experience isn't really good. There are coaches in this industry that, year by year, they're not known for winning at all, but they're great people and they provide a great experience. And you see that consistency. And I think that's the majority, right? Because at the end of the year, there's one national championship or champion for each national championship. So where does that leave all the other teams? Okay, so they're not national champions, but they're not losers.
Right.
What defines your success? So if you're fortunate enough to get all the way to the end and come out on top and get that trophy, awesome. But you should really be defining yourself by your day-to-day experiences. And I think that that's something that, again, every single coach can attain. My story, I just want people to understand how relatable it is to them. I relate to most people with the lack of disposable income, lack of resources, the lack of support. But you have to have somewhere in your mind a dream of what you want life to be. And, again, you hear it all the time, right? But absolutely, no matter what age you are, don't stop pushing and striving for the things that make you happiest.
Yeah.
It's true, though. It really is. And
That's
even if you don't get all the way up to the mountain, whether a kid wants to play at LSU or UCLA or wherever, and like as we were mentioning earlier, that recruiting path takes a left turn, and now you're at another school, doesn't mean that you wasted your time going to those camps and dreaming about the big school. It's just a different reality, right? But you're in college. and an opportunity to provide for yourself and provide for your family. I mean, I never thought about that when I was in college, but that degree and having some experience and some education has allowed me to develop something that most of all be able to help the people I love when I need to. That's the best part about having a couple extra dollars in your bank account is being able to help people that need it. And knowing in your heart you can't help everybody because then you get really easy into that one as well too. But so I just think that's important, some important components to kind of remember because I just want people to realize what they see out there as success, and they might even be it's not threatened, but they might not. I'm not into that other side, but they kind of want it for themselves. You can do it. Like absolutely. Even in softball, you can build your brand. You can build whatever you need. This is wide open territory for you to be as successful as you want to be.
Yeah, I talk about that in two separate ways. I talk about it. Write your own story. You're the author. Write your own story. You don't have to look at somebody's book and plagiarize it and make it your own. You make your own. And then, we define our own level of success. So your level of success is completely different from what I think, and vice versa. So, it could be I wasn't a success because I didn't play college ball, or uh, I was a success because I played college ball. Well, that might be your level of success, but it's not someone else's. So just kind of measure your own success by what you think and what you want to become, what you want to achieve. That's one of my things. So
Design your life, or life will design it for you.
right,
Right.
exactly.
Design your softball life, or it'll be designed for you.
Right.
My win is not, for people that know me, it's not the national championship. That's awesome when you win it, right? Awesome. I don't want to downplay that at all. But my absolute win is watching them play the game the right way and play it on their own. Like that's for me personally, is why if you go and pull up any TV games or anything, you see me, I don't talk during those games. And I would say competitively, even to a fault, where there might have been times I should have coached a little more. But I don't care. The win was about watching them take the field, take the stage, know what to do, feel like they're prepared. Up on the ridge, the officer can't be down there on the front line for that soldier, and to watch them perform what they're doing. And when I talk about that, it's as an analogy, Tyler, because you have that background in the military. It's just a comparison, because being a softball coach and being a soldier, I don't compare those two things. I think that what, even through your training and everything that you did, I don't compare these two. I look at what my dad did, what service people do. I'm just a little guy playing ball and coaching ball. Yeah, we're helping people on a bigger picture, but that level of respect for even professions that put their life on the line, there's nothing to compare. So when I use those analogies, I want anyone in the service to realize that's a form of respect, but it's not by any means saying we're on that level.
Yeah. I think it comes from, I look at it, this organization is shaped the right way, and that's where I draw the comparison to me in the military. And I think that's the way you do too. It's a level of respect from the bottom to the top, and from the top to the bottom. If it wasn't reciprocated, I don't think it would be successful. And that's the same way with the military. When you see all the good from the military, it's reciprocated. And then when there's some stuff, like one branch gets a black eye for something stupid that happened, then it gives the whole branch a black eye, or the whole level of military. But there is always a certain level of respect that we always give the military. And yeah, I appreciate the uniforms, the uniform changes that, or not changes, but the additions, I would say, that you guys are coming up with for this coming up season, and in the future. I think those are sick. The olive drab, the camos, those are awesome, and of course the pinstripes, they look great. So always honoring our military and honoring our country is something that, it puts a smile on my face. It makes me feel good that there's such a high level of respect from the organization to the country and to the military. So I with one person, I appreciate it. If no one else told you they appreciate it, Coach, I appreciate that.
But the play with honor continues to live. I mean, Juliana and I are, she's partnered with me for, gosh, we probably 10 years ago. And, again, not knowing exactly where to take it, and then trying to understand kind of the business component, but not. And so kind of made some decisions that weren't right in the beginning. And what continued to happen was, especially within the Firecrackers, it continues to be used all the time. Like it's there, like the Firecrackers keep it alive. I originally, and I was almost wanted to warn you about just mentioning even your participation in the Firecracker program, because there's a lot of times competitively there's this sense, oh, Tyler's a firecracker, so we're not going to watch him anymore.
Right.
There's this thing, or play with honors, a firecracker thing. And so originally I wanted to not have it be known for that, because I feel like so many people need to be reminded of that. And so through like almost an 8 or 10 year process, it's come back to the firecrackers. Like play with honor just sits in the firecrackers. Like I get it. Everyone believes in the message, but it's hard for people outside of our org to grasp it or grab it and use it because it's perceived as a firecracker thing. Okay, I get that. So we kind of came back full circle and said, look, I'm kind of denying it from the people that are using it the most, and I don't want to do this. Now go back to like what Scott Smith with the Texas Bombers, and so he's what I call my new age mentor with whether it's analytics and then what the Bombers do with their branding. And so he's always got different creative ideas. And now you can buy a Yankee hat in any color, and you can buy a Marlins hat or a Braves shirt in any color. And now people are just matching them with their Nike shoes. And so that's crazy. So the brand part of this is, I think, what I enjoy most right now at this stage of my coaching career is developing different ways for people to feel the brand. So again, analogies, there's Hard Rock Cafe, and then there's a Hard Rock Cafe New York t-shirt. There's a Hard Rock Cafe Las Vegas t-shirt.
Exactly.
We really want our people to be able to identify themselves within our brand. So your own brand within the brand. Firecrackers Brashear, Firecrackers Medina, but then there's Firecrackers Alaska. It could be regionally, it could be anything, but to give people that. And so we came up with some different ideas this year, and I'm excited about, because I believe that the name kind of stands. So if, we're open-minded. If someone wanted to do a firecracker in a purple or this or that, we're kind of looking at some things, because that is kind of where the branding is going. And I think it's important to diversify and give people some options. I love our original colors,
Right.
but you can only wear so much red and black. So I can wear black all the time. That's just what I do. So
Me too.
And then real quickly, I just wanted to mention, like, we've started a range pitching academy, and that brand and what my partner Holly has done with that. And we were talking last night, you had mentioned earlier just the word plagiarism, but it's like taking something, because we're tradition, right? We take something we heard, take something we saw, and we pass it on. And so she had mentioned in a clip once that she'd really like to revolutionize the industry in the way pitchers see the game. And so we were noticing some things last night that I was trying not to be full of yourself, but I asked her, do you think that this post would have been out there if we weren't doing what we're doing? And she kind of said no. And I said, well, you wanted to revolutionize the game. So the fact that they're using our words, and it's not that we invented these concepts, we're just passing them on. I said, but that's flattery. So they're learning how to be original. They're learning how to tell it their own way. That's the next steps, because it might be like, hey, that's kind of the way we tell the story. That's okay. That's flattering. You wanted to revolutionize the way people are looking at the pitching aspect. Right. And that's starting to happen. And so the whole branding thing, the personal branding for players, the NIL, the ability or opportunity to monetize as college players until there's a professional level that can do that. So I think the importance of, kind of going back to your question earlier about the social media aspect for the players, that's their business platform. Yeah. So whether they go on and develop and have an opportunity to be sponsored or compensated in college, or they build that platform now and it helps them in business 10, 20 years down the line. That's something that we're targeting this year inside the Firecrackers, is looking at how can we provide an education on branding and personal branding and marketing. So we're kind of digging into that right now, because I think it would be great to educate our kids right now in high school and younger, so they can be ready by the time they get to college.
I think that is really, really important. I think understanding that business isn't always about money. It's about the brand as well, and the reputation that you have within whatever atmosphere you're trying to be in. I think that's huge. I think that's just another element to, what you're doing, what the organization is doing. How much fun are you having right now as just being Tony Rico? How much fun are you having?
I'm laughing because in our range class last night, the topic was the third speed, developing a third speed for pitchers, right? So taking something off your hardest speed. Every pitcher wants to throw harder, but not every pitcher can throw harder. Every single pitcher can throw the ball easier.
Right.
but it's not glamorous and it's not what we go for. We want the launch angle home runs and we want to throw the heat. Heath Miller's getting a rounded out education of this, and Rylan came out and guested for us this weekend, and she tore it up. She did a really, really good job.
Good.
So last night in our range class, we're going over the third speed, and so I'm still a guy full of sound effects and kind of doing things the way, whether it's a bat with a da, 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 whatever. I'm always just kind of that kid. So I was explaining to the girls, I said, another way to look at your three speeds is your hardest speed is anyone that knows me is going to laugh. I'm doing this right now, but your first speed is kind of like the rump, and your second speed is the rump, and your changeup is the rump. So at the end of the class last night, I said, so that first speed's going to be and they'll look at me and they go, rump. And so I got them making the noises, right? And I'm laughing, right? I'm just laughing because I got the girls to do the sound effects. And one of our students, she's probably 13, she goes, "You're having fun, aren't you?" Look, it's like 8 o'clock at night. And let me tell you, when I was your age, I was out there on the street playing wiffle ball at this age, having just as much fun. So my mom used to say, life is what you make it.
Man.
And yeah, how much fun am I having, Tyler? Man, I feel like I'm either at the end of a bad life or halfway through a really good life. I've heard that a comedian say that once, and I don't want the party to end. I don't want time to be running out on this life party. It has its tough times and challenges, and that's life. I think you have to be able to understand that and experience the tough parts of life. But man, Coach Norm, who passed away a few years ago, he was in his mid-70s when he passed, and he lived every day like it was on his terms. So I don't think I could be having more fun, but I'm always going to strive for it. And then you deal with the tough stuff.
Right.
Tough stuff's there. I tell softball people all the time, when you take your tough stuff to bed with you, it's like stepping in dog doo-doo and you don't wash your shoe off, and then you're laying in bed and it smells and you're not feeling good. And then your partner's looking at you like, why are you doing this? Like, how many coaches listening to this right now has had their spouse or partner go, why are you doing this? You just
Right.
got off the phone again, fighting with somebody on a Sunday night after you just gave all your weekend, all your time. Why are you doing this? And the answer is because I love it, but I haven't learned to kind of put it in a place where I need to wash my shoe off, keep the shoe outside, and then go to bed and have a good night's sleep. We have to protect ourselves.
Right.
Parents have to protect themselves. Players have to protect
You're,
themselves.
you're
That's
right.
part of passing on guidance as well.
You're right. Where do you see softball right now in general as a game? And where do you see softball taken from here? Where are we going with softball in the future?
This is purely a subjective statement. It could be wrong. It's got to be the fastest growing sport, female sport, and fastest growing sport in the world right now.
Yeah.
Now it's just an incredible time to be part of Fastpitch. From where it was, and all of the pioneers and people that put in their love and passion for the sport back to whatever age or date it was. My 30 years of watching the game kind of grow, watching the game develop, watching the swings develop, watching the game become eye candy to not just sports specific audience, meaning, you have a relative or someone that's a specific interest while you're watching it, but now it's on in restaurants, the College World Series delivering every single year. I don't think you and I could script it better. Every year there's a story. It's Odyssey, it's this, whatever it is. Every year there's a story there. Oklahoma's rise to fame, what they're doing from where Patty started. Man, this is an absolute awesome time to be part of softball. And now I look at it as out here, I say wild, wild west. Maybe it's Civil War days or revolutionary, like what it was versus what it could be, and kind of what's on the frontier. I believe that we need infrastructure. I believe that because it is, the term business isn't a bad term, but it's business. There's finances, there's expenditures, there's all types of things, the importance of offsetting costs, my own need to continue to have a business education and learn. Infrastructure is number one, so that when we look at an existing business template and then we put softball over it, it doesn't look like, whoa, this guy keeps his own books on a legal pad, and it has to be run the way businesses are if we're going to deliver. The amount of financial stress, the obsession of love, the recruiting stress, coaches, when you build your relationships with your families, they won't question anything that you do. But if you're that person that is run by emotions and it's only winning or it's only recruiting or whatever, and your behavior is not consistent and you don't build those relationships with your family, they're going to question everything you do. So in principle, you could buy a Pepsi at the gas station with the team's money, and then principally you misspent their money. So I'm excited about working with people to create infrastructure, and I think the last thing would be to allow our customer base, the teams that participate in events, the coaches of smaller organizations, coaches of smaller teams, teams in kind of obscure areas, to allow them to feel appreciated, to allow them to feel cared for. I believe that the top of the food chain for the long time kind of always separated itself almost as elitist and didn't acknowledge the lower end of the food chain until you either beat them or your players were good enough to play on their teams. And so I really like to participate in helping people up the mountain. Again, a certain type of success, whatever that might be, is attainable for every single softball coach. And to not sit there and pitch the alliance, but one of the big concepts for the alliance, which I think is the opposite of the perception. The perception of the alliance, I figure there's going to be 2 to 3 to 4 years of kind of, I won't call it propaganda, but kind of like normal competitive kind of attacks and things like that. And so we just kind of let the real story unfold. The truth is that we're trying to help people up the mountain that can't get up on their own. And there's kind of an inequality to the experience and the comfort level that a lot of coaches have. And this is going to sound real funny, but I would love for a coach in Missouri or North Dakota to not feel like his team has to join the Firecrackers or a big organization for his kids to be seen. With the alliance, and as it continues to build with the statistical component, we would love for the number 4 home run hitter in the country to be noticed in the statistical component, and they're on some little small team. Coach Sean always calls them the Lady Llamas or whoever they might be, and they're sitting right next to the Corona Angels or right there. So basically, it's like, you guys are right. We didn't have to spend all this money to fly there or to join your team, or you actually shine the light on us and you allowed me to be successful in my own little way. Firecrackers started with one team founded by a gentleman named Gary Wardein. I'm not the founder. So that story, you have some success, you want to pass that on. And I think that's really important too. So a little bit of a long-winded answer to the sport, but my goodness, there's no better time right now to be part of Fastpitch.
Yeah. I think about it a lot of when I started in the game. Kaden, my oldest, was 4 and she's 14 now. So she's been doing it for a little while now. And man, just putting the glove on the wrong hand, and sometimes they show up in a uniform, sometimes not. You just didn't know what it was to get to this level that where the game has gone down at the popularity. Because I mean, even just 10 years ago, you'd barely see it on television, and where it's going. I think you have the meat of it is college, where because that's getting seen, that's getting the TV time, and then there has to be like a trickle up and a trickle down to continue promoting the game, to get the youth athletes to play the game so that it grows organically. And then also you got to give these athletes somewhere to go from college. You got to give them, the professional, and it takes money. So they professionally, they barely make anything. So it's hard for them to have this as their job without all these other outside things. But if you look at all these other professional sports, they're able to make it their job, and they can become better ball players when you give them something. And of course, it takes money, and that's a whole nother business conversation. But I can't wait to see what happens. And I don't want to rush it because I'm enjoying the ride. I'm enjoying the experience. I'm loving where we're at now, but I can't wait to see where the game goes in the future. So I'm
I always say
excited.
we don't know what's around the next corner, but every corner gets more and more exciting. So
Yeah.
go back to the pioneers of 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Now look at the current players
Right.
that will be pioneers. So if you look at kind of, and it's not just kids from our program, but if you look at what Lauren Chamberlain has done with her social media aspect and kind of her ability now to provide for herself off the softball field, Sis Bates, if you look at what's happening with, number one is the game is being played the right way. So I don't think it's a noble cause, meaning, oh, let's help the girls because the girls need help.
Right.
I get that, and that's charity, but no, the game is being played in a way that's respected by major leaguers, right? And that respect is legitimate because of the way they're playing the game. So it's not like, oh, look at the girls trying to play their version. No, it's like, look at the girls. I mean, I heard a podcast last night where a former major leaguer said, man, can you imagine if they had slapping in the major leagues and how that would extend the career or give opportunities to speed guys that can't really hit, And so looking at the evolution of the game, and then where is that going to be? So I believe because the game is being played the right way, I think because of the true beauty of the players, meaning not just externally, but the way what they're projecting and the happiness and their own confidence and certainty, because that sells.
Yeah.
So I think that the non-endemic sponsors are coming around the corner because it seems like they're more interested in putting their logos and their companies on the social media pages of people that they know are being scrolled by thousands of people a day rather than in commercial spots or magazine ads. And so Tyler, I really believe that these girls right now are the pioneers, that even though they're not making much, the Alliance is working and has partnerships with companies that are very serious. And we, on the inside, I can share with people that the MLB is very serious about supporting softball. It's not just a little sister that they want to throw a couple of
Right.
bones to. They're working hard on creating a platform so that they can create a true partnership and provide. So we're a few years away from legit professional ranks, and that's always going to start small. I believe it'll happen, but now I think going back to our grassroots, I think that we really need to inspire our coaches and give them opportunities to know that look, it does have to do with the way you throw, the way you hit, the way you run, the way you carry yourself, the way you speak. All of those things go into the product. We don't want just the top 500 players to have this projectability that looks good on camera.
Right.
Every player can walk a certain way. There's no background requirement for entering the military. Anybody can come from any background, and what spits out is this conduct, right? So it's not like, oh well, and obviously, and people ring the bell and they quit and things like that. But if you think about what the military does, it brings a centralized kind of behavior and mindset. And if we can do that to the grassroots player, because the reality is also that you don't have to be athletic to play this game. You don't have to throw right. You can enjoy this game. Look at special needs, right? So Special Olympics. I always tell parents this and coaches when you're kind of on your kid all the time about how she does things. I said, what if she was a Special Olympics player? Would you be like on her about her running form or throwing form? Like, hell no. Like, that's already been taken away. So you're just purely celebrating the fact that she can enjoy the game or that she can play. And it warms your heart to watch somebody be able to run and enjoy a game. And so it's almost like our kids are subconsciously being penalized because they're healthy. And now we get into this overcorrecting of their form, always want to help. And a lot of that's just passed on by tradition. So
Yeah.
why wait until, because if you listen to, a parent of a child with cancer or someone their perspective is different. So why can't we take that perspective into our lives and not wait till something tragic happens to where we have to have that forced realization of a bigger picture? And and to go back to something you said earlier, this is a lot of it, call it kumbaya talk. It's the thing that feels good, but don't take it the wrong way, people. You always have in this hand your ability to compete. So you can have a competitive sword in this hand,
Mhm.
but there's nothing better than loving people. So, I think that if we do that and we can start to make sure the game is being taught the right way, there's going to be a broader base of players that are playing the game the right way and just more opportunities. Because I'd like to think if you and I had $1 billion and we heard about this thing called softball, and then we took a look at it and we saw how many people were watching it, we see what's happening with the US or ESPN ratings during the College World Series. Tyler, we would say, don't let anybody else in. We want to be proprietors. We want to fund this thing. Like, you guys are a gold market. And I mean, not just monetarily, but what you are as almost like, look at it as a band that no one's discovered or a restaurant that no one's found yet. Like, this is a sport that people are discovering, and the more they taste it, the more they want it. There's more analogies for you, but
It's
I do look at it that way.
it's crazy. At some point, it's going to take off, and whoever thought about, man, I should probably get in on this. They'll be kicking herself in the butt. Like, I missed my chance, because it's going to take off, because there is so many ambassadors out there that are just great people, not only great for the game, I understand that, but just great human beings to look up to, role models that have such a wide array of backstory that can teach young people how to do things the right way, and not physically, but getting through stuff. I mean, the mental side of it, it's a big part of it. There's a lot of girls out there that have gone through what a lot of girls are going through right now, that if they had a chance to to see them more, listen to them more, or have an experience with them can help out a lot. And of course, it all comes down to it takes money.
Take money, but I tell you, coming from nothing as far as material wise or resource wise, that this game also can be taught beautifully in a very simplistic way. And I really believe that expenses can be lessened like tremendously. I think there's a traditional behavior, and right now,
Mhm.
again, you're trying to provide for your daughter what you can, but it's fielding lessons, batting lessons, pitching lessons, conditioning lessons. Like there's so many different things, and it gets me in here to think of families that don't have the extra income to do that. And I want to share with them the good news that you can minimize. Do you have to go every week? Do you have to do this? There's so many different ways, and I want to continue to help people build, because I think one of the things that it's a challenge for people that have had success in this game is, and you're trying to help yourself provide. So what is the value of your service as an All-American, a USA player, or a top level coach, or whatever? You have something unique, proprietary. What are you worth versus what do you charge? And I think that's something people need to think about. I think you should always kind of, for myself, fall on the something that people can afford, and don't worry about how much you're going to make with it, but allow yourself to reach more people, because if you charge what you're worth, only a certain amount of people can afford $275 camps, or different things like that. This is just my personal story. I don't think I've ever charged $100 for anything. But I'm not saying that people should do that. Everyone has to find a way to make their living. So,
Right.
but I'm excited about the opportunities. And I think another thing that I would want people to kind of think about in our industry is like, we don't have to badmouth each other. We don't have to we're all in the same industry. So look at yourself in a certain district of a city that if people come to your town because there's so many different restaurants. So if you're wishing bad on the restaurant across from you, and then they go out of business, uh, and then their windows are boarded up, what does that do to your industry? It doesn't make it better. So off the field, we should be supporting each other. Um, the more secure you are with yourself and find a way to be that, the more you can genuinely support others. I think it's pretty obvious that when you're not as happy or secure with yourself, you're threatened by others, and then you do more of the bad mouthing. So we don't believe in that. We acknowledge it. We acknowledge the haters. We acknowledge all of the. I would be skeptical. I would be pessimistic. I would be like Rico's about the money. But I would ask anyone that once they hear the story, or they're in not only mine, but other coaches that are trying to help the industry, listen to them and then pass judgment, right?
Yeah.
If you feel like I'm really self-serving and about me after this podcast, and you run out there and tell people you're like the devil,
Yeah.
notice I don't market. There's no firecracker shirt on. It's a Ruka hat. So it's
Yeah, that's right. It's funny at the highest level of travel ball, at least in my eyes, and somebody could have a different opinion, and I welcome that opinion. But at the highest level, you look at the leaders of those organizations and the leaders of the top teams. I don't think there is any beef or any, hate or just, I don't know, hate, I guess would be my word, where y'all don't get along. I mean, there's a level of respect because you all understand that if it wasn't for this guy, this girl, if it wasn't for us as a collective, there wouldn't be us as one. You know what I mean? There has to be a level, and we have to respect that. And I think all of y'all understand that. And I think that's what's the biggest takeaway from for me at this level is how much there's a level of respect that goes with that competition that drives all of our successes.
that was not always there, and
Right.
it will always be one of the things I'm most proud of being part of. When I entered softball a long time ago, the top orgs hated each other. They would openly announce that. They
Yeah.
would say things that just to kind of give perspective of how much they didn't like each other. Like I said earlier, and then they didn't really acknowledge you until you had to kind of take care of business, or you were able to.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, like I said earlier, and I think that these relationships started because we started competing against the Angels and the Batbusters a long time ago, and it was watching that coach, maybe as you won, acknowledge you and give you a compliment and not walk away arrogantly, or maybe watch that coach as he won, not consciously or subconsciously rub it in your face and say, ha ha ha, we're here on the food chain. Because it's just so, I always used to laugh at it. I would always want to say, guy, you're a softball coach,
Yep.
right? This is in the Super Bowl. You're walking around like you just won the Super Bowl. Like, we're here coaching girls. That's just the way I look at it. I personally had a standard for myself playing for a certain program, and Coach George Horton, who helped kind of shape my life. I've never been kicked out of a game in 30 years. And it's not a standard I tell every coach to have, but it was a behavior standard that I never wanted to go back to that person. That the term I think is overly competitive, Tyler. I think people
Right.
like keep the competition off the field. But when your players hear you badmouth people, they remember that. And if you think you look like a better person when you badmouth people, you don't. That's just a fact, plain and simple. When you can acknowledge someone has a certain opinion of you, and that's okay because they're entitled to it, you're giving your kids an example of even how to handle the other side, whether it's competitiveness or someone who really doesn't like you. I mean, that's fine. So I think that's important. But working with the Tysons, working with the Stiths, the Dave Mercados, the Scott Smiths, having Sean Brashear at this ground level of like all the things that we're doing. Kevin Shelton from the Texas Glory, like I always tell him, if I would have realized how smart he was 20 years ago when we were competing, that definitely would have been in my head when we were on the field. That guy's a genius. Like, he is extremely smart. And I love listening to Kevin Shelton speak in our meetings. We had a financial year end meeting a couple of days ago with the Alliance. And there are coaches, Bo from the Bombers, Dave Wheeler, Henderson from the Northwest. These guys are geniuses. They're very smart. They're very progressive. And they really are the lifeblood of kind of behind the scenes of where this sport is going. Shoot, I'm not a finance guy. I'm not a business owner like that. These guys are bringing things and ideas in, and all of us working together. The challenge is there are so many voices and there's so many pockets of influence, but that's what we want. We want people to have a voice. We want to know, even conflict resolution. How are you going to get past someone's anger without listening to them? So you got to listen to people when they're angry. You got to listen to people when they have a counterpoint. There might be a Debbie Downer in the room that's always the naysayer, but you need one. You don't want everybody all excited about every single idea. You need someone that's going to, as Dave King from Triple Crown says, you got to shoot holes in your own idea to see if it stands. And then, because out there, it's going to get shot, and I think that's one of the challenges of softball. There are so many companies and people seeing the needs that they're bringing a lot of products and services into our industry. But the challenge is a lot of them aren't out of the oven yet. So they're not fully beta tested. They're not fully so next thing you know, then we agree with something in a partnership, and now our coaches are saying it doesn't work. And they're like, we'll get somebody on that. We'll get somebody on that. So, it's got to be out there 3 years and have beaten up. It's like the softball coach or anything else. But put it all together, amazing people. And, what you're doing, you're a storyteller. And I appreciate what you're doing and the people that you have on your podcast, because, I've watched quite a few. And like I said, I go into delete mode pretty fast. And you've got a guy out there, Heath Miller, right now, that is another example of, he just has an energy. He brings people together. I say he puts on a good show. Not everybody's a front man or front person like a Mick Jagger or anything like that. But when you are, it's what brings people together. But you also need the people that put the event together, build the stage, all the other support staff that you had mentioned earlier, because without it, there is no show.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I mean, like you said, man, I could have had these conversations in a roundabout way with a lot of different people. And my whole thing was, if I can get this information out to someone that may or may not want it, but after they hear it, they've got some information that they can pass on or just keep to themselves, so be it. But, I don't know if I'd have ever been able to have a conversation with you, and the friendship that we've gotten just from being two different worlds, two different backgrounds, two different coasts, and being able to talk and kind of, learn from each other, different perspectives, just like we do in every one of those coaches meetings. It's an honor to be a part of such a great organization. And I can't thank you enough again for what you do, not only as a person, but just being someone that we can all kind of center ourselves on and be like, what, I'm glad I know him. And if we didn't, who knows where a lot of us would be right now, because there's a lot of guys that look up to you, a lot of girls that look up to you for not just the coach, but the mentor, the mentorship that we get. So I appreciate it, Coach. I mean, you are a living legend.
Whoa. cool thing, Tyler. But like I said, it's the small softball world. All I got to do is go to the grocery store down here, and I'm just another guy. Funny look at the way I look or whatever. Tyler, where'd you grow up? What city were you born in?
I grew up in Davie County in North Carolina.
Okay,
And
so I would tell my mom this. Go, Mom, when do you think that Mexican guy that grew up on the corner of Compton and Clark Boulevards would be like connecting with a guy who grew up in North Carolina, and we got different ways of talking, different things. And that's the most beautiful part about this whole thing. We're all people, and this sport has brought us together, Tyler. And that's why I was smiling while you were saying that, because these connections, I would come back from speaking on the road and say, Mom, this guy looked like a cowboy, was giving me a dirty look at the beginning of the talk, kind of like he probably didn't prefer me. And then by the end of the talk, we connected on our dads being in World War II. And then he finished with telling me he's going to be nicer to his daughter in the car on the ride home after a softball game. I said, so it started off with that look that I get sometimes, and then it finished with this connection that is absolutely the most rewarding part of softball. So appreciate you having me on today, Tyler.
It's been an honor. I want to catch up again. I'm sure. I mean, I'll see you Tuesday on the coaches meeting, but I want to do this again.
See where we're at maybe in a year from now. And, I'd ask people to, again, do your due diligence. We're not selling anything. Check out the videos and the story of the Alliance and what it's really about. If you have a pitcher out there or you're a coach and you want to improve upon your performance, check out the Range Pitching Academy on Instagram. My partner Holly is telling an amazing story. She's got a sports psychology degree, and she pitched and coached in college. And then I'm the crazy coach that's figured out a couple things on the field with some of these kids. Everything I can say from my heart is designed to pass on to people to help their experience, to help their level, whatever it is that you're trying to do. So check things out, make your own judgments, but anything there helps you, let us know, because all we want to do is continue to serve the people of softball.
I will make sure I have all the links down in the description below. That way they can find you. And if they have any questions, you're not that hard to get a hold of. So thanks, Coach. I really appreciate you coming on, and I can't wait to talk again soon.
Tyler Black.